there are some circumstances in which there is an imminent threat, and sometimes the president needs to take action even before he can find the Gang of Eight, the leadership in Congress and House and Senate. But in this case, the administration has actually failed to offer any evidence whatsoever that there was an imminent threat. In fact, in Secretary Pompeo's narrative, all of a sudden, imminent became intermediate, that there was a track record of Iranian aggression, and then in the next few months, there might have been additional aggression. So I think Congress has legitimate reasons to be unsatisfied with the administration.
Do you think that there is a greater threat now of some sort of wider conflict, or do you feel, as some people are saying, that maybe this has run its course and there's likely to be smaller scale incidents from now on?
Well, I don't think this is the end of the story. Look, we have seen previous Iranian efforts to try to push the US out of Iraq. For instance, between 2007 and 2011, there were hundreds of rocket attacks on US military personnel in Iraq. There were roadside bombs. In fact, according to the Pentagon, more than 600 Americans were killed in that process that eventually led to US departure from Iraq. And the Iranians have announced that the strategic objective here is to do the same thing, to push the US out. I think the missile strike on US bases in Iraq was a symbolic part of retaliation for killing General Soleimani. But the strategic response is this. And in addition to that, the Iranians might also, down the road, at a time that they believe the risks of a backlash from US are limited, do an eye for an eye kind of retaliation in trying to assassinate a senior US military official somewhere in the region or beyond. So this story is not over.
So in a sense, as you're pointing out, with possible personal targets and, of course, other bases around the Middle East, there could be more to come from the Iranians.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, the reality is, I think this retaliation at this stage was unsatisfactory to many people in Iran because Iran lost one of its most senior and revered military figures. And in response, the attack on Iraqi bases had no casualties or fatalities. But the Iranians are calculating and careful, and I guess that they would probably respond in a way that either Donald Trump is engaged in another international crisis or some domestic crisis and is not able to respond. And by the way, let me add that I don't think that congressional action, even if a legislation passes the Senate, which I think is quite unlikely, would actually tie the president's hands because the administration can always come up with pretexts of legitimate self-defense, which any legislation would allow anyways.